Good morning. Ken Artisan here. August 3rd, 2020. I wrote a book. Here's the here's the title. Life Gardening 43. This is the back of the cover. That's me with my gardening equipment. I was a landscape gardener for my occupation, for my career. I worked exactly 43 years in the business. I retired in the year 2017. I want to talk to you about my book. Before I do, let me tell you a little background of how I got interested in the landscape business. What were the key factors in my decision of what my career should be? In this book, I discuss my early childhood. I was born Chicago, Illinois. We lived there for about 8 years, from 1954 through 1962. Then my parents relocated to Granada Hills, California. It's a suburb of the San Fernando Valley in Los Angeles County. 1962, I was 8 years old. I got my first job with pay. I had a neighbor who had weeds in her front yard, and she paid me 50 cents an hour to pull weeds out of her front yard. It was interesting. I had a small little spade. I think I worked 2 hours, so I made $1. What did I do with that dollar? I went to the liquor store, bought some comic books, Orange Crush, and a Snickers bar, and a Milky Way bar. Those are my favorites. So in the beginning of my book, I discuss my early childhood. That was my first job. And then my second job was when I was about 9. I acquired a paper route. Back in those days, I had a Schwinn bike with the banana seat and the bars in the back. And I acquired this route because in those days, paper boys were very common. The newspaper company would distribute about 30 papers to my driveway. And I would pick them up, go into my garage with a rubber band, fold 30 papers. Then I would put it into my sack on my handlebar, my bicycle handlebar. I put a sack and put the 30 papers in there. And then I had a list in my neighborhood of those who wanted. It was called the Valley Green Sheet newspaper. So for 7 days a week, I delivered 30 newspapers, usually around 3:30 in the afternoon. Interesting, it was a afternoon edition of the Green Sheet. And obviously on Sunday morning, the paper was bigger. I did that for a couple years. Made about $30 a month, which is about $1 a day. I also had to collect the money from the neighbors who got the paper. Interesting, I come up to their front door and I'm the paper boy who delivers your paper. Can you give me $3 for the newspaper for the month? $3 subscription for the month, not bad. So I did that for a while, and then I got to be about 12 or 13. I had a side job. There was a business owner who printed up a lot of flyers, business flyers for his business. So me and a friend, we went door to door and put the flyers on people's doors. I think I got paid about $2 for that. But in 1971, that was a key moment in my life. I was 16 years old. I had a car, had my driver's license, and I drove out to Canoga Park, California. And I went into Love's Wood Pit Barbecue Restaurant, talked to the owner, and he offered me a job as a busboy. Interesting. The pay was $1.45 an hour. And I bussed and cleaned tables and delivered water to the tables, and also helped out the waitresses in the restaurant. I did that job for about 2.5 years. I remember I worked Friday, Saturday, and Sunday nights, and Monday through Friday I went to school, but on the weekends, those are my hours. I worked about 4 hours. It would be about from 5 to about 9 p.m. every night as a busboy. Interesting job. Toward the end of my 2.5 years, I was promoted to a cook or a chef in the restaurant, and the pay went up to about $2.30 an hour. Did that for about 6 months, but eventually in 1974, I got tired of it. It wasn't making enough money. $200 a month. So I decided, what should I do with my life? I had graduated from high school in June 1973. Didn't know what my career was going to be. Went to junior college a little bit, but I had no idea where to go. So I drove around. I went into Santa Clarita Bank, community bank, talked to the owner, and I got a job as a messenger, bank messenger, where the teller would give me a folder and I was to deliver it to the other community banks in the neighborhood. That pay was about $2.50 an hour, but it only lasted 3 weeks. I got tired of that. Told the owner of the bank I'm quitting, and she offered me a job as a teller, bank teller. But I told her, you know what? I'm not interested in the bank business. I believe I want to enter self-employment and start my own business. But what would the business be? I didn't know. Well, at the time, I was 19 years old, 1974. I was living in a Christian brother's house, and many of the other brothers who were in the house, there was about 8 of them, they had side jobs and were in business for themselves. Some were plumbers, electricians, poolmen, carpenters, handymen, and one of them was a gardener, a landscape gardener. He asked me one day, you want to come and help me? I need some help doing some yard work on people's homes. So I went with him, worked about 4 or 5 hours that day, and my eyes were open. This was a gardener maintaining a person's home, mowing, trimming, weeding, cleaning up the yard. I asked him, what kind of business is this? He explained it, told me how much you can charge customers. I said, what kind of experience do you need? He said, you just learn as you go. So in September 1974, age 19, I called my father and I said, Dad, I'm going to go into business for myself. I'm going to become a gardener. Do you need your yard cut? He said, come on over, and he became my first job. So I bought a truck, $650, bought a mower and an edger, a hose, a rake, a shovel, arrived at his home, and my first job was in my book. I detail what it is, and let me read it to you. It's in my prologue. On Monday morning, September 2nd, 1974, my life changed in a manner I never envisioned. I was starting my own company from scratch. My first customer was my father's home. who said it was okay to mow and edge his yard for $7.50. The weather was calm. It was 78 degrees. It was 8 o'clock in the morning. I pulled up. I mowed his front yard and backyard. I took an edger, edged it. Then I took a broom and I swept off the sidewalks. And then I took the hose and I cleaned off the sidewalks to make it look nice. Loaded up my truck and drove away. And that was my first job. September 2nd, 1974. And my dad became my first account. I did it weekly, $30 a month. And from there, I started picking up other jobs in the neighborhood. A neighbor needed it. That was my second job. And then within a month, I think I had 4 jobs my first month. Well, that was September. And by the end of the year, I have a list of what I made my first year. My first month, I made $92, just mowing and edging yards. Then I put an ad in the paper, Ken's gardening service, mow and edge, give me a call. And I got some calls. Second month, I made $186. Third month, $332. Fourth month, December 1974, $404. So my first year, actually my first 4 months, I made $1,000. And from there, I got started in the landscape business. Okay, so in my book, I talk about my first year in gardening. It's chapter 2. And how did I get going, you know? Well, like I said, I put an ad in the paper and I got calls. And by the end of 4 months of working, I picked up 25 accounts. Just mowing, trimming, and then a customer would ask, can you trim my bush? And then they would ask, can you plant a flower? And then I would do some weeding in flower beds, take a cultivator, turn it over. And from week after week after week, day after day, I should say day after day, working 5 days a week, a couple of jobs each day. And then working month after month. After 4 months, I had acquired, my business was getting rolling. So in 1975, I got going. Eventually got up to 30 jobs. And just mowing, trimming. So from 1974, September, through 1975, September, how much did I make? My rookie season. According to my book, I have all the records. See, in my book, I list all the money that I made each month, year after year after year. So according to this, after 1 year, I had made $10,000. Not bad. That's my rookie season. So chapters 1 through 3 talk about my early beginnings in the yard business. And I was working in Los Angeles, well, the San Fernando Valley of Los Angeles County. Granada Hills is a suburb. And I had some experiences that are interesting. See, here's a typical gardening day. Wake up at 6 a.m., pray for a few minutes, eat a bowl of Wheaties, some toast, glass of orange juice. Leave the house, drive to my first job, and arrive at 7:30 a.m. Survey the yard, mow and edge front, takes about 22 minutes, rake out the leaves, dump all the clippings in a trash barrel, load my truck, and I'm gone. First job. And then job 2, same thing. Job 3, 4, and 5, neighborhood. I meet a friend for lunch. His name was Doug Furman. He helped me out. Gave me some tips because he had his own gardening business. Oh, this is a typical day. Then after lunch, I get to a yard, talk to the customer. She asks some request. I, some customers pay me in cash. I meet some dogs, play with them. Then about 3 o'clock in the afternoon, I'm done. I go to the bank, deposit my checks. And when I get home, I record all the jobs I've done in a little booklet. It's a typical day in my first couple years in the gardening business. I'll give you some 10 unique job experiences I had from 1974 through 1979. Worked in Los Angeles for about 5 years. Here's 10 job experiences. One, I had a customer complain her lawn was turning brown. I had a great idea. I bought some spray paint, green spray paint, and sprayed the brown spots. It's hilarious. It looked okay, but after a while, that's not how you green up lawns. Best way to green up lawns is to buy some fertilizer and water and overseed and add soil. All right, here's a second job experiences. Many yards have dogs, and I remember there's one German Shepherd. He was in the backyard hiding. I opened the gate, proceeded with my mower to mow the backyard, assuming that the dog was locked up, but he wasn't. And when he saw me, he started charging toward me. And I turned around, ran and jumped the fence and closed the gate just as he was nearby. Otherwise, I would have gotten bitten. So you got to be careful in yards about dogs. Third, another experience. I went to a yard one day and the house had burned down that week, yet the yard was still needed cutting. So I mowed another front yard, and yet the house was all burned down. That's an experience. Fourth experience, I worked 4 weeks at a yard, 4 weeks in a row. And when I left the bill, I found out that they had moved. So I never got the payment. This was an example of a dishonest customer, didn't pay me. Fifth, there was a tree next to the front door that had branches hanging down, and I cut them. I cut the branches. But when I got home that night, I got a call, customer upset. Why did you cut my branches? So I learned that experience. Always inform the customer before you cut a branch. 6, one summer day in the middle of August, the smog was so terrible that I was wheezing and coughing, and I had to quit halfway through the day because smog got in your lungs. This was the San Fernando Valley. All right, 7th experience. I acquired a job that had an acre of lawn, and I had a push mower. And for 1 acre, I mowed back and forth, pushing. Ridiculous. I learned you need to buy a self-propelled lawnmower so I wouldn't have to push it. 8th, I picked up a small yard. It only took me 7 minutes to do. So if I charged them $30 a month, that means I earned $1 a minute. How much is that an hour? 60 minutes in an hour? $60 an hour. Not bad, huh? Number 9, 1 yard was perfect. It was right on the golf course. And as I mowed, I'd take a break and just look at the golf course and just reminisce and just relax. I've had many jobs like that. And then 10, my most unique experience from the years 1974 through 1979, working in Los Angeles, is I decided to sell my company. And I sold it in just a couple of days. I was making $2,500 a month. This was after 5 years of working. And I had heard that you can sell your gardening route for 3 times the amount. So I put an ad in the paper, gardening route for sale, $7,500. A Japanese gardener called me, offered me cash. I gave him all the jobs, and it was simple. Why did I sell the business? Because I said it was time to move out of Los Angeles and move to a better climate. Remember, Los Angeles is hot, smoggy, too large of a city. So packed up and I moved to San Diego, California. And this was in the year August 1979. So my chapter here, chapter 3, years 2 through 5, working in Los Angeles. 1976 was a unique year because that's the year I got married. So my wife and I, we were renting an apartment, and it was easy just to move. Okay, in following chapter, my years 6 through 11, I'm working in San Diego, California. How did I do it? Well, I had $7,500 in the bank, plus my checking account and savings. We moved to San Diego, and I rented an apartment. Actually rented a house, 3-bedroom, 2-bath house, $500 a month. Put an ad in the paper, Ken's Gardening, mowing edge, fair prices, honest, give me a call. So what happened in the month of August 1979? Well, according to my list, here it is. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Made $1,000 in my first month working in San Diego. How? Ad in the paper, and then references, and then I put flyers on people's doors. And I picked up, I believe in that first month, maybe about 15 gardening jobs. And then from there, you build and build and build. Well, I had the experience of 5 years, so I knew how to do yards. I knew what to charge, and I knew how to do them efficiently. And as a result, neighbors were impressed, and I picked up those yards. What was unique about working in San Diego was, in a typical day in Los Angeles, it'd be 100 degrees. But in San Diego, the same day, right along the coast, San Diego coast, Point Loma, La Jolla, Pacific Beach, it'd be 72 degrees. And I noticed that difference right away. I said, this is ideal. Working in San Diego will be cooler days, and it's not as big as a city as Los Angeles at that time. And so when I put the ad in the local newspaper, I got calls that were close together to where I was working. And the calls that I got from La Jolla, these homes were more expensive, so I was able to charge more. Small yards, I charged $40 a month. Medium yards, I charged $60 a month. Large yards, $80 a month. This was 1979. And then when you have cleanups, you can charge $100 or $150. At that time, also, 1979, I had already, in Los Angeles, I had already finished 2 years of community college, so I had 60 units. When I moved down to San Diego, I decided to enroll at UC San Diego, University of California, San Diego. Transferred my units, and I took 2 years at the university. And by 1981, June, I graduated with a Bachelor of Arts degree in history. How did I do it? Well, I would have classes in the morning, start at 7 a.m. class, be done by 11, and then I would do gardening from about 12 to about 5:30 every day. And that's how I did it, finished my degree. And yet I was still working 1979 through 1981, made about $25,000 a year. That was basically part-time because I was finishing my college credits to earn the Bachelor of Arts degree. Okay, so in this chapter, working in San Diego, I worked about 5 years there. Typical day, you wake up 6 a.m., have breakfast. And in those days, while I was going to college, I would get the 7 a.m. class. And I took 16 to 20 units a quarter. It was a quarter system, which was 10 weeks. And made it through and got a history degree. Here's some 10 experiences I had working in San Diego from 1979 through 1985. I worked 5 years in Los Angeles. Then I worked 5 years in San Diego, and I'll explain what happened in 1985. But here's some experiences I had in San Diego. I had a trimming job in La Jolla. 15 ficus trees needed shaping, but they were so tall, they were 20 feet tall. I worked 10 hours trimming 15 ficus trees. It made $750, but I realized this was a headache. You don't want to take on large yards because you don't make as much money. The key to the gardening business is to take on small accounts. Small yard, small backyard. You can mow in 5 or 10 minutes the front, 10 minutes in the back, take a weed eater, whip around the edges, cultivate the beds if it needs it. If there's a bush, trim it, rake it up, put it in the barrel, take a blower, blow off, and you can be out of there in 20, 25 minutes, and you charge them $50 a month. Add the numbers, and that's how you acquire enough income for the month. And at the end of the year, you've made a good salary. All right, so I'm talking about 10 experiences I had in San Diego. One was that ficus tree job. 2, going to the dump. One time I overloaded my truck and some of it spilled out, and that's a fine if a cop catches you. So I had experience there. Always cover the truck if you're going to the dump. 3rd experience, picked up an apartment building, 50 units, but the job was way too large, and there were papers and trash, and in the carports, the wind would blow all the leaves, and it was dusty. That was not a profitable job. So I learned, stay away from apartments. 4th, decided to fertilize a nice looking green yard. It didn't need it, but I did it anyway. And when I came back the next week, half of it was burned. I put too much fertilizer down. I've been working for 5 years. I should know by then, right? Not to over fertilize. But one yard, I learned that a lesson. Don't fertilize heavily. Fertilize lightly. Get the bag of fertilizer and broadcast it, which means you throw it like a baseball. Put your hand in the fertilizer bag, have a fistful, and you throw it. And that's called broadcasting. Before I would take a spreader and do it. That'll burn yards. That's just a tip. Okay, the 5th experience I had in San Diego. It was wintertime, and I overseeded a Bermuda lawn with winter rye, Oregon rye seed. But here's an experience. I did it too much because when it rained, it would be clumpy. And a lot of times I would take a spreader and reseed the yard. Mistake. Do the same broadcasting when seeding a yard. Put your hand in the seed bag, have a clump in your hand, and throw it like a baseball over the yard. It'll spread evenly, and then you cover it with manure or topsoil. So that's the experience I had is if you use a spreader, you get clumpy grass instead of even grass. 6, one week it was raining every day, and I got behind. And you know what I did? This is a positive experience. Since I got behind a couple of days' work, I loaded up a lot of jobs in one day. And as a result, I set a record. Normally, you can do 10 to 15 gardening jobs a day. If you're good, you can do 20. But on this particular day in San Diego, California, I did 32 gardening jobs in one day. How? I don't remember how I did it. All I know is I started early and finished late. But I had to do it because the rain got me behind. So that's the experience I had in San Diego. 7th, a customer asked me to dig a tree stump out of his yard. Big mistake, because I couldn't get the roots. No matter how much you dig and take an axe and a pick, it just didn't work. I hired some guys to help me and still couldn't get it out. And I told the customer I can't do it. Guess what? Didn't get paid. Big mistake. 8, another experience I had, I used to stay home when it rained, but then I learned if no work, no money. So one day I worked 8 hours straight in the pouring rain. How do you do it? You still mow the grass, you still weed whip, and you blow it off, and you go. You have to work. All right, 9. During the holiday season, I received bonuses from my customers. They gave me chocolates, cookies, bottle of wine, sometimes $50 in cash. And then the 10th experience I had working in San Diego, California was in 1985 in the summer. I decided to sell my gardening business for the second time. Remember the first time? I sold the Los Angeles business, sold it for $7,500. The second time I sold my gardening business, I sold it for $12,500 to 3 different gardeners. Why did I sell? Because San Diego, I thought, was a small city, but it's not, because there's a lot of suburbs. You got towns in the county of San Diego that are far away. I would get jobs in La Jolla, San Diego City, but then I got jobs in Lemon Grove, La Mesa, Allied Gardens, and they were 20 to 30 miles away. As a result, my jobs were too far spread out. I said, this isn't working. You don't want to be driving from job to job and wasting time. You want jobs close together so you can make the money for the day. So I sold my gardening business, and I sold a house that I had purchased in San Diego. And we moved north to North County, San Diego, to the city of Vista, California. This was the summer of 1985. So my next chapter, I talk about years 12 through 43, working in Vista, Oceanside, Carlsbad, San Marcos, Encinitas, and Escondido, California, and a little bit of Fallbrook and Bonzo, California. So this is all in my book, Life Gardening 43. Since I've had the experience of selling, moving to San Diego, and starting up again, for the second time I sold and moved to a new city, and starting up for the third time. Put down the paper, references, neighbors, flyers, saying hi to people. I'll do your yard. And what did I do in my first month in Vista, California? That would have been, I made more. I made $1,800 in my first month in Vista, California. I worked my butt off doing as many jobs as I could. You may be interested, how much money did I make from first 5 years in Los Angeles? Well, let's see. First year was 1,000, then I got up to 10,000, then I was about 14,000 because I was going to school, 15,000. Then by the time I sold, I was in the 26,000 per year. So if you want to add it up, 10, 24, 15, 40, 55, made about $80,000 in 5 years. Not very good, right? In Los Angeles County. But from the years 79 through 85, how much did I make? Well, I told you I graduated in 1981 from UC San Diego with a Bachelor of Arts degree in history. So then I really just added on jobs. Instead of doing 50 jobs a month, I got up to about 100, even 120 jobs per month. So from the years 1979 through 1985, how much did I make? Roughly about $250,000 in 5 years. So about $50,000 a year I was making in San Diego, which is pretty good. Okay, so now I'm in Vista, California. All right. And as my book just, I had 10 unique experiences in North San Diego, California. First experience. It's important to work fast, but be careful. One day I was digging a yucca plant, and I used a chainsaw and I cut the branch, and the juice from the yucca squirted into my eyes, and I got blinded. I couldn't see, and I tried to flush it out with a hose. I couldn't see, so I ran to the hospital with both eyes kind of going like this, driving the truck, got to the emergency room. The doctor flushed out my eyes. That was an experience I'll never forget. So you got to be careful cutting yucca plants. 2, these are 10 experiences in North San Diego County, okay? Never give in to others' demands. I hired a helper. Told him I'd pay him $6 an hour. This was 1979. No, 1985. At the end of the day, he says, no, you need to pay me more. And I said, no, we had an agreement. So I learned the lesson. Don't hire workers. Just work by yourself, Ken, and keep all the profits. So when I hire the worker, I'd have to make so much on the job and then pay him. So that was a mistake. So I learned early on, don't hire extra help. So most of my 43 years, I worked by myself. All right, third experience. One customer, they agreed to pay me $125 a month. But at the end of the month, she sent me a check for $100. She stiffed me, so I quit her. And here's a lesson I learned in the gardening business. If people are going to stiff you, don't keep them, quit them. So not only have people fired me over the years, but I have quit people who are not fair and honest. That's an experience. Fourth experience, always take on a small yard. I once did a small mow and edge yard in Carlsbad, California for $15 per visit. You know how long it took me? 1 minute. What's 15 times 60 minutes? $15 times 60 minutes. That's $900 an hour. Not bad. Wish all my jobs were like that, but they're not. All right, fifth experience. Be careful in taking on large accounts with slopes, easements, banks, hillsides. It can take hours mowing up or mowing down or sideways. So I always learned, take yards that are level. Make more money that way. Sixth experience, stay away from thick trees that require a chainsaw. If you're going to do a tree job, do them small ones. I stayed away from thick, heavy, old, rusted, hard as a rock branches. Stick with trees that have soft branches when doing tree work. So I learned that lesson. 7, close the gate if owners have pets. One miniature schnauzer dog got out one day. It took me an hour to find the dog. So if I'm running around the neighborhood trying to find the dog, that's wasted time. So always close the gate, okay? 8th experience, learn about plumbing in the yard and where to turn the water off. I hit a sprinkler valve and the water was flushing and gushing out. And I didn't know where the turnoff was. So for a half hour, the water was gushing and gushing, gushing. So I learned the lesson. Find out where the shut-off valve is for the house. Okay. 9, stick to gardening jobs over. Some customers ask me to do moving their furniture and putting it in a truck and help them move to another apartment. I did that once. That's a wasted time. I'm a gardener, not a house mover. 10, always look over the yard for debris and rocks before mowing. I remember one time I was mowing and a rock flung. I hit a rock with the mower. The rock flung and hit another car window. Had to pay the damage. So be careful of rocks in the yard. Another experience, look out for bugs, insects, snakes. I've seen snakes and bees hiding in bushes. Be careful there. I've got stung many, many times. And if the queen bee is there, the queen bee wants to sting you 10 times over. So be careful there. Also, another experience, 40 years. I've had 2 car accidents and 4 tickets. 43 years. 2 car accidents, 4 speeding tickets. So you got to be careful when driving on the yacht. 13, I've had trucks that are in good working condition and trucks who are not working condition. So I've learned the lesson: buy the better working vehicles. So you don't want to get stuck in the middle of the day if your car goes over. 14, always agree with the customer. Bad attitudes will lose jobs. If I say, well, I don't agree with you, you'll lose the job. So it's best to agree with the customer even if they're wrong, if you want to keep the job. Now, I told you about jobs that I quit. Those are the ones who don't pay me. I quit them. But those who pay me, I keep them. 15, I tried to sell some individual accounts. That's a bad idea because they were good accounts. I get some cash out of it, but you don't want to sell a good account. Keep it. All right, so that in my gardening book, years 12 through 43, working in North County cities, some experiences I've had. Okay, in my book, chapter 6, acquiring and estimating accounts. How do you do it? Advertise in the local papers. Sometimes it's $4 a day. It could be $125 a month. And it works. You get calls. Second way to acquire accounts: referrals. Third, referrals by other gardeners. 4, talking to neighbors. I've seen a neighbor. I'll say hi. And I'm mowing someone's yard. And when I see the neighbor, I'll say, I'll do your yard. I'll give you a good price. You know how many times I picked up a job that way? Out of 10 times doing it, probably about 4 times I've picked up the job. 6 times they decline. Another way to pick up jobs: have a sign on the truck. They see your name and number. They know you're a gardener. They'll call you. Another way to pick up jobs is flyers on doors. Kind of ineffective. Out of 1,000 flyers, I may pick up 25 jobs. So the ratio is pretty poor. 1,000 flyers of work for only 25 estimates. And out of the 25, you may get 15 jobs. Not worth it. So I just dismiss putting flyers on doors in order to pick up accounts. Flyers on bulletin boards in mobile home units, that worked a little bit. Okay, that's acquiring jobs. How about estimating accounts? Well, the best way to estimate a yard is determine how long it's going to take you. And by having experience of working in many, many, many yards, usually I can estimate how much by the size of the yard. Small size yard is the most profitable. $30 a month, 40 a month, 50 a month, and you're there maybe 1 hour for the whole month. 15 minutes each time you show up per week. So another way to estimate the yard is you look at the terrain, the structures, trees, shrubs, weeds, rocks, soil. Look at if there's thorn bushes, pine trees, eucalyptus trees. Look at the type of grass you have. Look at the home's value. A home that's not worth that much, you charge less. A home that lives in La Jolla that's worth $1 million, obviously you can charge more. Also, when talking with customers, this is estimating accounts. When you're talking to them, determine the demeanor of the customer. If they're nice and they're wholesome and they're reasonable and they're fair, then I give them a fair price. If they're picky, you know what I do? I give them a high price. You know why? Because I don't want the job. They're picky. And if their demeanor is that you can tell that only one person in the family is working, give them a lower price, but it could still be a profitable job. And then also when you estimating accounts, to determine how much equipment do I need: mower, edger, blower, weed eater, chainsaw. Okay. Estimate small yards 15 to 20 a week, medium yards 25 to 30 a week, large yards 35 to 40 a week. Okay, so when you're planting shrubs, $1 per gallon, that's how you charge per shrub. Tree trimming, small trees $50, medium trees $150, large trees $300. Removal of shrubs, small shrub, if you remove it, $50. Medium shrub, $100. Large shrubs, $200. This is some estimating prices. Okay. My next equipment talks about equipment. You got to have good equipment if you're going to make a profit in this business. So over 43 years, I've used 20 trucks, 25 mowers, 15 weed eaters, 4 edgers, 6 hedge clippers, 5 chainsaws, 55 rakes, 25 shovels, 20 clippers. Best truck, Toyota. Best mower, Toro. Best weed eater, Toro. No, Echo. And blowers, Echo. Chainsaws, Echo. Okay. So I talk about in my equipment book all the money I've spent. In 43 years, I added it up. I invested about $43,000 into my business. How much did I get back in return? Over $2.5 million in 43 years. So the rate of return is good. How about this? In 43 years, I worked about 11,000 days. How about that? So in my equipment chapter, I talk about the best lawnmowers, the best weed eaters, the best blowers, the best chainsaws, pole pruners, rakes, so forth. Okay? My next chapter is maintenance. I talk about how you maintain yards, mowing, how to maintain lawns. I've mowed bluegrass, marathon, fescue, Bermuda, winter rye, bent, zoya, St. Augustine, dichondra, wildgrass. I talk about how to maintain them. Summertime, you want to leave it a little higher, 2.5 inches. In the wintertime, you can leave it 2 inches, 1.5 inches. And when you fertilize, I talked about the broadcasting. So that's maintaining lawns. How about this stat? In 43 years of gardening, I probably have mowed over 160,000 yards. How about that? Okay. Bushes, I've maintained, trimmed thousands of bushes. I've done privets, mock orange, gardenias, hawthorns, azaleas, jasmine, begonias, ivy, pitsporum, daisies, gazanias, junipers, iris, lantana, bamboo, bottle brush, wisteria, camellia, hibiscus, oleanders, petunia, rhododendrons. And I've done the cactus bushes and roses. Stay away from yucca. Remember that experience. Trees, I've cut a lot of them through my years, hundreds of them. Like I said, I stay away from the tall ones. And you want to get trees that have soft wood. How do you feel? Feel the wood. Because they're easier to cut. You don't want a thick tree and the chainsaw does not cut through it because it's hard as a rock. No fun there. Weeds, I pulled millions of weeds. Crabgrass, chickenweed, velvet grass weeds. Okay. So in my maintenance book, I talk about lessons I've learned in maintenance. I always mow first and edge second. Why? Then you tell which part of the yard, especially around the corners and edges, that didn't get cut. So if you mow first, then you see what's sticking up. Take the weed eater and do a nice trim around the edges to make it nice. Okay. It's better to mow a lawn in the direction not seen by the street. You don't want to see the lines in the lawn. Mow crossways so when you look from the street, you don't see the lines. Okay, some lessons in maintenance. Mowing. Mow on a 7-day schedule. Recycle the grass if you can. Mulch it. Trimming bushes. Trim from the top to the bottom. And when you take the clipper, when you're holding the clipper to trim bushes, if you want to do it by hand versus a electric clipper or a gas-powered hedgers, turn it over and trim it that way. That's more effective. And the cut on the branch looks more even. if you cut this way, the cut goes up and doesn't look as good. That's just a tip in trimming bushes. Okay. Use loppers on tree branches that are pretty thick. Don't use a clipper on thick branches. Use a pruner or a lopper to get through that. And when you use the lopper, get the teeth of the lopper, not the tip of the lopper. If you use the tip of the lopper to trim the branch, not as effective. Put the lopper and the teeth all the way in the branch, make your cut much more efficient. Fruit trees, you prune them in January, early February, and then by the spring, you'll see the leaves branch out, and the fruit will be available in the summer. Use a chainsaw, use the teeth of the chainsaw. Have your chainsaw away from you when you're cutting. Don't have it close to you because it can snap back and hit you. So this is my maintenance chapter. Planting shrubs. Don't dig too deep. A lot of customers want the hole way too deep, like 5 feet in. No. Small shrub, just a foot. You want the root to spread out, so you don't dig big holes. Dig small holes. Put a little mulch in with it. Flower beds. You can use a weed eater to clean out weeds, and then use a shovel and a cultivator to do the rest. That's more efficient versus just picking it with a weed whipper, with a hand weed thing and picking weeds. Too slow. Use a weed eater, then cultivate it out. Okay, flower beds. I talk about fertilizing. We talked about that. This is my maintenance chapter. Okay, my next chapter is customer relations. The most profitable way to have a gardening business is to maintain a steady and reasonable and fair and pleasant relationship with your customer. You will be successful. What do I mean? You greet them, you tell them you're honest, you show up, you do fair work. If they're entrusting you to work at their yard, so they want to make sure that you're not a thief. Give them the impression right away that you're an honest fellow. You care for their yard, you care for their well-being, and you care for them personally. This is how you have a successful gardening business. Pick up the account, establish the relationship. Hi, how are you? How's your family? I'm here. I'll take care of your yard. I'll be honest. And I'll charge you a fair price, and I'll do good work. That's how to be profitable in the landscape business. And I practiced that for 43 years. I got fired here and there because some people are too picky or unreasonable. But I would say 90% of the people are fair and honest. 10% are bad apples. And I talk about that in my customer relationship chapter. Three types of customers. The gold, they pay you on time and they give you a raise. Silver customers, they keep you on and they pay you. And then the brick customers, those are the ones who cheat you. So I talk about that in my chapter. I have a stat. 43 years working in the gardening business, I probably met about 8,500 people. How about that? 30% are gold, 60% are silver, and like I said, 10% are brick. Bad. Okay, my father was a gold customer. Example of a gold customer, my father. He treated me good. I had a customer who never complained. I think I had her for 20 years. Not one complaint. That's a gold customer. Some customers give you a bonus at Christmas time. Gold customer. Some customers pay ahead. So a lot of times I would work, leave a bill, and get paid. But some customers paid me the month ahead and did that for regular. Those are gold customers. Okay. Silver customers, they're just average people. You hardly ever see them, but they pay you. So I call them silver, but you never see them. The gold ones you see. and they give you bonuses, and they give you cookies and milk and sandwiches and wine and bonuses at Christmas. But the silver customers, you hardly ever see them, but they pay you. Some of them, a couple complaints here and there, but not bad complaints. And then the brick customers, oh, those are the ones that like, you do their yard, and when you show up the last week to collect, they moved. They moved the techs. Can't locate them, so I got stiffed. Another customer, charge them $100 a month. They only give you 50. I quit them. Another customer said she'd call the police on me. Why? She was delusional and had dementia, so I quit her. And another man, brick customer, I cut the lawn sideways, right, so you don't see from the street. He wanted me to do it the other way. I say, just leave me alone. I know how to cut a grass. He says, nope, I want you to cut it this way. And I want you to edge it this way. And I want you to rake this way. And I want you to trim the bush this way. And I said, I'm out of here. I'm not working for you. I work for myself. I know what I'm doing. Those are brick customers. All right. Here's some examples of unique customers I've had over the years. I've had millionaires. I've had unemployed old ladies just work on Social Security. I had a lady who had so many dogs and cats in her yard I couldn't count. I've worked for a pediatrician. I worked for teenagers. I worked for real estaters. I worked for a blind man once. Did his yard, didn't even know what it looked like, yet he still paid me, trusted me. Worked for a professional skateboarder. Worked for dentists. I worked for people who are used car salesmen. I worked for a judge who worked in a district court. Got to be careful with him. Worked for firefighters. They slept during the day. I said, I got to mow the grass. He said, go ahead. I still need to sleep. I worked for policemen, lawyers, bankers, photographers, senile ladies, restaurant owners, fishermen. I've worked for priests, computer specialists, marine captain, builder, contractor, life insurance agents, physician's assistant, gas station owners, railroad conductors, music teachers, senile people, airline pilots, and I've worked for another landscaper. How about that? And travel agents. So that's this is my customer relations chapter. Okay. What's the most frequent complaint in the gardening business? How high or low to cut their grass. That's the most frequent complaint. And also what time of the day I showed up. Compliments. They tell me that, hey, I referred you to my friend or my neighbor, my son, my daughter. So, okay. Next chapter, efficiency with profit. How to be efficient in the landscape gardening business. What's the best way? Efficiency means you do the job quickly, but it still looks good. You can rush through a yard and leave it a mess and go away. That's not efficient. But you could rush through a yard, mow, trim, blow up, clean, turn the sprinkler on, fertilize, overseed, topsoil, whatever you need, and still be done quickly and efficiently and make a good profit. That's what I mean by efficiency with profit. Let me give you an example. Let's say you have tall grass in the yard. The slow way would be to take a mower and mow and pick up the grass and empty the grass every 5 minutes. And after 1 hour, you mow the grass. What's an efficient way? Set the mower really low. Don't use a bag. Mow it really quick so all the grass is on the yard. Rake it up, put it in the barrel. Then mow the second time to pick up all the leftover. Instead of 1 hour, it only takes me 30 minutes. That's called efficiency. It's still the same job. See what I mean? How about another example? Trimming a Eugenia hedge. I can take clippers and go like this for 1 hour. Or I can take an electric hedgers and trim it. Use a mower to pick it up. Blow it all in the corner. Rake it up, put it in the barrel, and out. With the clippers, it takes 1.5 hours. With the gas hedgers and the blower, 35 minutes. Charge, you make more money, see? hour and a half versus 35 minutes. That's efficiency with profit. All right, so I talk about that. And then efficient scheduling, schedule all your accounts close together, estimate. You know what the practice I did in the gardening business? I always gave a fair price. I never gouge people. Landscape gardening business, be fair and people will treat you fair. I had a gardener, or I had a lady, she had an estimate from a guy, $200 a month to do her yard. And I looked at the yard and I said, I'll just charge you $80 a month. Why is the guy charging 200? I don't know why, but that's gouging her. So I did it for $80 a month, and I got the job, and the other guy didn't get it. He estimates. The lady says, "I'll call you if I want you." I estimate. I get the job on the spot. I practiced that throughout my whole career, and as a result, I had 100 jobs, 120 jobs a month. Okay. All right, here's a stat. I've estimated 14,000 account jobs, and I acquired 10,000. Just because you estimate doesn't mean you get it. 14,000 estimates, 10,000 acquired. Pretty good a ratio. Okay. Then I talk about people stories. I've already talked about outstanding people, okay people, poor people. So I have a chapter on that. I talk about money stories, how much I made in my gardening business. I told you at the beginning, I made 10,000, then I got up to 20,000. Then in San Diego, I got up to 50,000. In Vista, through all those years, I had 4 kids. So I volunteered my time with Little League baseball and basketball. So I didn't overload myself with jobs. But I averaged about $60,000 a year in my years in Vista. That was enough to feed my family and pay the bills and save a little bit. I talk about money stories. I talk about injury stories. Oh boy, there's a lot in this chapter about how I've hurt myself, I've gone to the hospital twice. I got the yucca in my eye. I poked myself. I've gotten rashes. I had a kidney stone once, 2004. It was a really hot day. I had to go to the hospital for that. I didn't drink enough water. I talk about my injury stories. All right, I just list them. Sprained my foot, jammed my finger, cut my arm on glass, splinters from old wood, rashes on stomach, legs, sore back, bee stings, headaches from pollen, poked earlobes, hair stuck on wild grasses, sore knees, nausea, diarrhea, vomiting, pulled neck, some of the injury stories. Then I talk about weather stories. This is interesting. The worst day to work is a windy day. I don't mind the rain. I don't mind the heat. I don't mind the cold. Windy days. Why? Everything blows in the yard. You pick it all up. And when you're leaving, the wind is blowing all the leaves back into the yard. I got home. I cleaned up the yard. I got home. Customer calls me. Did you clean up my yard? I go, yeah. I say, well, all the leaves are in the yard again. I say, well, it's a windy day. When I left, the leaves were gone. So that's what I mean by the hardest day in the gardening business is wind. And then there are smoke days. There's a fire in the hills and you have to breathe the smoke. I don't mind if it's 100 degrees. I don't mind if it's 40 degrees out. So I talk about weather stories, equipment stories. I talk about best mowers, edgers, blowers, maintenance stories. Talk about my records I set. 32 jobs I did in one day. 122 jobs I did in 1 week, and 400 gardening jobs I did in 1 month. These are my stats. 5,000 gardening jobs I did in 1 year. I've done 35 estimates in 1 week, 70 estimates in 1 month, 500 estimates in 1 year. Earnings, $2.5 million in 43 years. That averages it to about 60,000 a year. But see, in the first, from 1974 through 1985, just made 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35. See, as the years went on, I made more and more. Okay, how about this? Lawns mown, 160,000. Weeds pulled, 1 million. Leaves raked, 1 billion. Shrubs planted, 8,000. Trees trimmed, 1,500. Lawns planted, 900. Miles walked, 20,000. Miles driven, 800,000. Towns worked, 30. People met, 8,500. Dogs met, 1,000. Hats, 140. Tennis shoes, 135. Gallons of water drunk, 45,000 gallons. Fast food lunches at McDonald's, Burger King, Pizza Hut, Little Caesars. Over 43 years, 3,000 times. Not proud of that. Sick days, 100 days, but I only missed 5 days of work in 43 years. One of them was a kidney stone day. The other was a yucca day, yucca in my eye. The other day, bad flu, diarrhea. And then one day was it just rained all day, couldn't work that day. It was pouring rain. Sprinklers repaired, 2,000 gallons of gas, 7,000 trips to the landfill, 750. Los Angeles, I had 2,000 accounts. San Diego, 2,000. North County, 4, 5, 6,000. Most earnings in one day, $1,160. Most earnings in a week, 3,000. Most earnings in 1 month, 12,000. Most earnings in 1 year, 77,000 was my highest. I wanted to go up to 100,000, but for do that, you'd have to work 7 days a week, and you really have to just be profitable. Could have hired people, but I was more satisfied working by myself. I could have had trucks going all over the yard, and I was the owner, but how much headache that would have been. And then I have to pay their workman's comp, and then if they have injuries, and if they miss yards and customers complain. Do you see how I made the gardening business efficient? By me being the sole responsibility. I take on all the work, I do the work, I do all the complaints, but I make all the profit. And I simplified. I just worked 5 days a week. I didn't work the weekends. I took 2 weeks vacation every year. And I was very efficient. And I lasted for 43 years. Okay. All right. So that talks about that. I talk about disaster stories. What are some of the disasters? Mow over stones and rocks, and they smashed people's windows, sliced sprinkler lines, knocked over a customer's statue, scratched customer's car with my shovel, backed my truck into a customer's garage door, stepped on customer's clean white carpet with muddy shoes, let the dog out, hose off patio, and the water gets into the living room, left oil stains from my truck, spilled gasoline on flowers, transported wrong plants into garden beds, cut off cable wires, broke wood planks on gate, ripped carpet, forgot to turn sprinklers off. So those are disaster stories, okay? Strange stories. I think I've met 4 guardian angels. Do you believe in guardian angels? I do. I've had a couple car accidents. I probably would not be here if it wasn't for the guardian angel. A car smashed right into me on my door side. Yet I came out alive. Somebody protected me that day. I've cut a live wire with a chainsaw, but I did not get electrocuted. Guardian angel. All right, some strange situations. Work for bums. Pretty girls in bathing suits stuck on the roof. I couldn't get off the roof. Fall off the ladder 10 feet and then break a bone. Hugs by old ladies. And a 20-year customer I never met. Strange stories. So reflections. Toward the end of the book, I talk about what's it like working for yourself. I talk about my working and going to college and also working. And so I talk about that. Questions and answers. Here's an interesting chapter. Why did you become a gardener? I wanted to own a business. Who was your first account? My father. Most satisfying moment in gardening, seeing a customer smile. Depressing moment in gardening, receiving a bounce check. Favorite brand of lawnmower, Toro self-propelled. Favorite weed eater, Echo. Reliable truck, Toyota. Favorite grass, Marathon. Favorite tree, sycamore. Favorite bush, Indian hawthorn. Weather condition, worse, strong wind. Kind of people that annoy you, picky. People that frustrate you, demanding. People that make you mad, unreasonable. People that make you happy, the accommodating people. Perfect customer, old single lady who is retired and feeds me lunch. Worst customer, old man who's meticulous. Smartest gardening business, selling Los Angeles, selling San Diego, and moving to Vista, California. Dumbest business decision, spending $50 on a plastic weed eater that broke down after one day. What height do you mow lawns? 2.5 inches. Prune roses above or below? Above the bud. Fertilize lawn every 3 months. Working conditions, most hours, 12 hours one day. How long did it take you to write this book? 1 year. When I retired, how much did I sell my gardening business for? $25,000. Famous quotes. You want to be paid cash or check? I like cash. Do you want to be paid tomorrow or today? Today is good. Why did you cut my grass so low? Because you told me to. Why is the grass turning brown? Because the dog sleeps there. Why is the rose bush on the patio? Where's my rose bush on the patio? It's in the trash can because you told me to throw it away. See, some customers senile. Why is there no fruit on my trees? Because it hasn't been pruned for 10 years. Why is there weeds in my flower bed? Because you haven't maintained it for 3 months. Why is the grass wet? Because it's raining. Isn't my dog sweet? No, he keeps biting me. Would you like a Christmas bonus of 50? Okay. Who are you? I'm your gardener that's been working for you for the last 5 years. All right, fun facts. In my book, talk about all my vacations, future plans. I'll tell you about the day I sold my gardening, or I retired. It was July 31st, 2017. I decided I'd had it. 43 years, over 160,000 yards, over 10,000 accounts. And I had enough savings, and I was turning 62, so I can get my Social Security, plus I had an annuity, so I could retire. Here's my last day in the gardening business. Who did I sell it to? Just put it on the paper, and a gardener bought it. Here's my last day, July 31st, 2017. I wrote a note to all my customers. And I said, I want to thank you, all you people. Let's see. I have it in here. The note that I wrote to my customer. I say, hey, to all my gardening customers, thank you for keeping me on as your gardener. Many of you have been with me for years, some over 20 years. I appreciate the trust you put into me, and it was my pleasure to serve you. I will be retiring after 43 years. I have another reference gardener that I will refer you to. He will be contacting you. Again, thank you for your business. Hope all is well with you and your family. That was a note I wrote to my customers, and then I sold the business. All right, I'm going to talk about that last day in the gardening business, July 31st, 2017. I drive up to my customer's house. Tears come to my eyes. My last job. Remember, my first job with my father. Here's my last job. 160,000 later. Tears come to my eye. It's 3 o'clock in the afternoon. I'd already sold the business. This was the last gardening job I'm going to do. And then I'm done. The weather is 72 degrees. I park my truck. I unload my mower, weed eater, and blower. I mow a pristine fescue lawn located in the backyard. It takes 20 minutes. I use the weed eater around the edges. I put the mower and weed eater in the truck. I blow off the yard so it looks nice. That's just the small yard. My last job was a small yard. 20 minutes. I reminisce for a brief moment. I look over the yard. I bow my head. I pause for a few seconds. I walk to the gate. I close the gate slowly. It latches. I get into my truck. I drive away. It's my last job. And I open the window and I say, "Thank you, Lord, for helping me out through all these years." And then I say, "Yes!" I shout, "I'm done! Gardening business is done. Sold. I am retired." So I wrote the book. All right. And then in the last, I put all the money I made through all the months, through all the years. Life Gardening 43. What do you think? I forgot to mention one thing. Did you know that I was in the North County newspaper? A guy called me up and he interviewed me and wrote an article in the newspaper about my gardening business. That was fun. Here it is. It happened December 25th, 2004. What's his name? Gary Worth from the North County Times newspaper interviewed me, took a picture, and wrote about my business and put it in the local newspaper. How about that? And he talks about my book, and he talks about my experiences. And then for the local daily newspaper, I wrote a column. Ken Arzone wrote a column in the local daily newspaper. "Attention gardeners and landscapers. Want to increase your profits in the gardening business? Let me give you an example of how to be efficient with profit." And I wrote a column. How about that? And then another time, I was in the newspaper for the third time, and this time, the city of Oceanside sent me a bill that was way too much for a license. So I went to City Hall and I complained, and there were some newspapers reporters there, and they heard me talking before the city council, and I said, "You charge me $100, but yet it says that you should only charge $50 for a gardening business license." Well, I won. They sent me a refund and gave me my $50. I had paid the $100, but then I went to city council, complained. They gave me back the $50. The next day, I was in the newspaper. Local gardener complains that he got overcharged. So that was in the paper. How about that? Just a small-time gardener in Vista, California, and he ends up in the newspaper 3 times. All right, what else can I say about Life Gardening 43 and my experiences in the gardening business? Here's the one thing I would recommend for any gardener who wants to work by himself. Number 1, be honest. Number 2, be fair. Buy a good truck, buy good equipment, take on small yards, maintain a good customer relationship with the people, and be knowledgeable of how the grass grows and how to plant flowers and how to cut bushes and how to trim trees, and try to be efficient with profit, and you can make a good income in the gardening business. Okay? But for me, I've been retired now. This is August 3rd, 2020. I retired in July 31st, 2017. Life Gardening 43. Okay. Ken Arzone, thanks for watching. I'm out.